It was past 2 in the morning. Lagos was asleep, or pretending to be. The streets below glistened with the leftover tears of the rain, and from the 15th floor of his penthouse, Tunde Adwale, the billionaire no one ever really saw, stared through the glass wall of his living room. The city stretched endlessly, beautiful, lonely, and loud in its silence. He was used to the stillness, the kind of silence that only money could buy, the silence that deafened. But tonight, something broke it. A movement beneath the amber streetlight across the road. There, curled against the cold pavement, was a girl. A small, shivering figure with a torn blanket and a polythene bag clutched to her chest as though it held the world. He watched her for a long time, too long. He told himself he was only curious. Billionaires didn't worry about strangers on the street. Yet, when the wind howled and lightning cracked open the sky, his chest tightened. She didn't move. 10 seconds later, thunder rolled again, and this time something stirred on the screen. Welcome to Billionaire Folktales, where every heartbeat hides a secret. Here, we tell emotional African stories of love, fate, and the mysteries that change lives. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now, lean closer. Tonight's story is one you won't forget. Tunde rubbed his temple. He had seen that girl before. For 3 nights in a row, always in the same spot, under the same flickering light. The first night, he assumed she was waiting for someone. The second, he thought she was lost. By the third, he realized she had nowhere else to go. He walked away from the window, trying to shake the thought, but her image lingered. Maybe it was the way she held herself, too proud to beg, too quiet to complain. Inside, his world was perfect, floor-to-ceiling windows, curated art, and silence polished like marble. Yet, as he poured another glass of water, he caught his reflection, tired eyes, untouched food, and a loneliness that refused to be hidden by gold. Down below, the girl shifted again, trying to pull her blanket tighter. The rain didn't care. It poured harder. He told himself not to interfere. People's lives weren't his responsibility. Still, something about the way she stayed still, almost surrendered to the cold, broke his logic apart. He found himself whispering, "Why are you out there?" to no one at all. For a moment, he turned away. But lightning flashed again, and this time she didn't move. She was completely still. He froze. His glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the tiled floor. Instinct overruled everything else. He grabbed his keys, threw on a hoodie, and took the private elevator down to the ground floor. The guards at the gate straightened up when they saw him, shocked, confused. Billionaires didn't rush out in the rain. "Sir, is everything all right?" one asked. "Call the security van," Tunde said sharply. "There's someone outside." He stepped into the storm, shoes sinking into puddles, rain soaking through his hoodie. The streetlight flickered again, once, twice, before going completely dark. He found her by the curb. She was younger than he expected, maybe in her early 20s. Her face was pale, lips trembling, one hand clutching an old brown notebook. The other held a cross pendant. Her eyes fluttered open briefly as he knelt beside her. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely there, "don't let them take my mother's things." Then she fainted. He carried her himself, ignoring the murmurs of the guards, and placed her in the back seat of his SUV. Her clothes were soaked, her shoes mismatched. Yet, as he drove toward the nearest hospital, he noticed something impossible to ignore. Even in her weakness, her fingers didn't let go of that notebook. At the emergency ward, doctors rushed to take her in. He waited outside, packing. He didn't even know her name. All he could think about was the emptiness in her eyes, an emptiness that mirrored his own. Hours passed. Finally, a nurse came out. "She'll be all right," she said. "Severe dehydration and exhaustion. She hasn't eaten in days, but she's strong." He exhaled for the first time that night. "What's her name?" he asked. The nurse smiled faintly. "Lara." Lara. The name settled in his mind like a soft echo. When morning came, Tunde sat beside her bed. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and hope. She was awake now, quiet but alert. "You're the man from the street," she said weakly. He nodded. "You shouldn't be sleeping out there, it's dangerous." Her lips curved into the smallest, saddest smile. "It's safer than where I was." Something in her tone made him stop asking questions. He wanted to understand her, but not break her spirit. He noticed the notebook again, the cover wrinkled but cared for. "What's inside?" he asked gently. "Dreams," she replied. "Ones that don't need money to exist." He looked at her, really looked. The calm in her eyes wasn't from surrender, it was from survival. And for the first time in years, the billionaire who had everything realized he might finally have found something money couldn't buy, meaning. Outside, the rain began again, softer this time, like the city itself was listening. Tunde turned toward the window. The same streetlight flickered far below, lonely, but still burning. He whispered to himself, "Maybe that's what we all are, lights in the rain." Tunde returned to the hospital the next morning with a bag of fruits he hadn't picked himself in years. He wasn't sure why he'd come again, or why he'd stayed awake all night thinking about the girl with the calm eyes and the wrinkled notebook of dreams. Billionaires didn't lose sleep over strangers, but Lara wasn't just anyone. There was something about her silence that felt familiar, as if she carried the same kind of loneliness he had spent years hiding behind glass walls and success. When he walked in, she was sitting upright, tracing the edge of that same notebook with her finger. The morning light fell gently on her face, no longer pale, but thoughtful. "You came back," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "You held onto that notebook even when you fainted. I figured anyone who guards paper that fiercely must be worth visiting twice." She gave a small laugh, though it came out like a sigh. "It's the only thing I have left from my mother." There it was, the shadow behind her strength. Her story came out in pieces over the next hour. Her mother had been sick for years. Hospital bills swallowed everything they owned. When her mother died, the landlord threw her out. With no relatives and no job, Lara wandered from place to place until she found a small shelter that shut down a month later. "I used to be top of my class," she said quietly. "I wanted to study medicine. Funny, right? I ended up sleeping outside hospitals instead." Tunde didn't laugh. He saw himself in her words, the way life sometimes traded dreams for survival. He told her nothing about himself, though the nurse had already whispered his name when she thought Lara was asleep. Billionaire, businessman, the man who built half the skyline she'd been sleeping under. Lara didn't bring it up. She just said, "Thank you," like it was enough. That day, he paid her hospital bills and arranged for her to be discharged. But when he offered to take her home, she hesitated. "I don't want charity," she said. "I just need a chance to work. I can clean, organize, do anything. I don't want to owe anyone." He admired her pride, the quiet kind that didn't raise its voice. "Then don't owe me," he said. "Come work for me instead." She frowned. "Doing what?" He shrugged. "We'll figure it out." That's how Lara came to live in the guest quarters of his estate, temporarily, she insisted. She spent her days helping the house staff, reorganizing the storeroom, and asking questions about everything. It wasn't pity that kept her there, it was her presence. For years, Tunde had walked through rooms filled with people but devoid of life. Now, laughter echoed in the hallway again, soft, uncertain, but real. Sometimes, he caught her staring out the window at the same streetlight she once slept beneath. "You miss it?" he asked one evening. She smiled. Not the cold, but the quiet yes. It's the kind of silence that reminds you you're still breathing. He understood that too well. Weeks passed, and they fell into a rhythm morning coffee at opposite ends of the table, small talk that felt like therapy, and shared silences that didn't need to be filled. She asked about his life once, and he surprised himself by answering honestly. "I built everything I thought I wanted," he said. "Now I just maintain it." "That's not living," she said simply. The words struck deeper than he expected. That night, he walked through his penthouse, looking at the expensive art and designer furniture that meant nothing. It wasn't that he had forgotten how to feel. He had forgotten that feeling was allowed. A week later, he called his architect. "I want to build something new," he said. "Not for profit, for people." "What kind of project, sir?" "A shelter," he replied, "for people who have nowhere to go." He didn't mention her name, But the idea was born from the sound of Lara's laughter echoing down the hallway. When he told her about it, she stared at him for a long time. "You're serious?" "Completely." Her eyes glistened. "People think billionaires only build to be remembered." He met her gaze, then let them remember the right thing. As the weeks turned into months, the shelter took shape, blueprints spread across his desk, meetings with social workers, permits, and plans. Lara helped in ways he didn't expect, suggesting ideas, organizing lists, even visiting communities where people slept under bridges. She didn't act like a beneficiary, she acted like a builder. One afternoon, he found her outside, sitting under the mango tree, sketching something. "What's that?" he asked. "An idea," she said. "A library corner for the shelter, so kids don't forget how to dream." He smiled. "Then it's in." They both laughed, and for the first time in years, Tunde realized he wasn't lonely. He was alive. But peace, like rain, always tests the roof. When the project was almost complete, investors questioned his choice. "A shelter won't bring returns," they warned. "It already has," he replied simply. A reporter finally asked the question everyone else whispered. "Why help her? Why build this?" Tunde looked at the cameras and said, "Because one night, I looked down from my window and saw everything I'd forgotten about humanity sleeping under a streetlight." The clip went viral. People called him the billionaire with a heart. But what mattered more was the look on Lara's face when she saw the finished building. A plaque at the entrance read, "For those who kept dreaming, even when the night was cold." He handed her the keys. "You'll manage it," he said. "Me," she gasped. "Yes, who better to run a shelter than someone who's been there?" Tears spilled before she could stop them. "You don't even know what you've done." He smiled gently. "Maybe for once I don't need to." The wind moved softly around them, carrying the scent of new paint and fresh beginnings. From that day, Lara ran the shelter with compassion and discipline. She became its heartbeat, and the quiet reason Tunde smiled more often than he used to. The city moved on, but he never stopped visiting. Sometimes they'd stand outside together at night, under that same flickering streetlight, and she'd tease, "Still watching from windows." He'd reply, "Not anymore. I'm standing where it matters." You've just listened to another story from Billionaire Folktales, where love, fate, and second chances meet under the African sky. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Every click helps more hearts find stories that heal. And the lesson: sometimes the richest people aren't those who have everything, but those who learn how to feel again.